The power to a refrigerator is 120 volts. There is power going to each component in the refrigerator, such as the compressor, the lights, the fans, etc. Every component or motor, such of these things, have one side of electricity coming to them at all times. For instance, the fan. Whenever the power coming to the fan is broken by something such as the light switch or the door switch, that is what turns the fan off. And the same thing for the light. So you have power going to the light on one side at all times, and the other power wire coming to the light has to go through this switch. All of these components of the refrigerator work in a very similar fashion, such as the compressor and the fans and the lights. Now, on most refrigerators, you have something called a defrost timer, and that determines whether or not the refrigerator is in run mode or defrost mode. Some of the components are a little bit more complex, and they have two types of switches that they go through. And for defrost, the element has to have power go through two things. Number one, it goes through the defrost timer, and then when it comes through the defrost timer, it also has to go through the bimetal switch, which is the little round cylindrical switch at the top of the evaporator coil. If the refrigerator is not cold enough, that switch, the points inside of it, won't be closed, and that means that power will not be supplied to the heating element. So if you're froze up in your freezer and you see frost all over this area, one of the very first things you will check will be the defrost timer, and by that you just automatically advance it until it makes a louder click after a series of smaller clicks. When it makes the louder click, the fans will stop, the compressor will stop, and then the heating element itself will be energized through that other side. It already has power coming to one side, but now the other side has to have power. So to recap, power will then go through the defrost timer, then through the bimetal switch at the top of the coil, and as long as it's cold enough, then the bimetal switch will be closed and it will send power to the heating element, and it should start to heat. If it does not heat, at that point what you would like to do is to either bypass the bimetal switch so that you can see if the heater works. You can also just try to test the heater with an ohms meter and see if there's resistance through the entire coil. You can test it that way, but I've found it to be quicker when diagnosing, especially something like a froze up refrigerator, to just quickly bypass the bimetal switch. Especially with refrigerators that have the metal defrost heating element, because those do not rarely ever go bad.